I've seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast in association with the Scottish Rugby Blog. How are you all doing? I'm Craig Manson and we have a really interesting pod tonight. We're going to try our best not to engage a smug style face for most of the evening.
It would be clear, you might.
Aye.
We will wait and see. We will see. Joining me on the pod tonight. Geez, I'm just going to forget about this already. Someone who thinks we need to leave Andrew Mountbatten Windsor totally alone. He's a pillar of the monarchy, and how dare we ever question his judgment ever. Jonny McGinty, great to see you tonight.
I was so sure that was going to be Allan. Me and you have beef now, Manson.
And an old school doctor, Jonny McGinty, he's joining us today, and also an old school doctor that thinks flu can be cured with ginger root and a shot of whiskey. COVID can be cured with garlic paste, a South American mushroom, and a shot of whiskey. Well, actually, all things can be cured with a shot of whiskey. Alan McDonald, how are you doing tonight?
I'm very well, Craig. I don't know what you mean about the whiskey.
That's just surely that's just the remnants of your iron brew that you just tipped out your can. That's it.
Absolutely, that's what it is.
When you say ginger root, do you just mean a night with Rob Harley?
Wow, we're not on the Patreon yet, Jonny.
Yeah, but there's no swearing, so it's fine.
Okay,
I've worked this out. You see,
all we're going to do is just have innuendo all night tonight. Alan's going to get his punometer out and just get cracking on tonight. Well, an interesting week we've had, gentlemen. How are you all doing today? Have you had some fun this week? I know that you have, Jonny, because you've been busy not only upsetting the children of South Fife, but also upsetting some of the Welsh, I think, as well. But Alan, how's your week been?
Yeah, well, I went in. Obviously, I was working on Saturday. We got home for the second half. My wife greeted me with a Negroni as I walked in the door, which I was very happy about. I should say this isn't a typical thing, but I had a wonderful second half because I was 2 Negronis deep by the end of the game and sent the dogs mental by punching my legs when Matt Fagerson charged things down. So yeah, wonderful time. And then winding up English colleagues. I've got a Welsh colleague that still thinks Wales have a chance. So that's been quite good fun. And we really better not lose because I've got a house here and everything. I can't afford to move. But I'm going to have to if we do.
Jonny, how's your week been?
Oh, class. We cancelled our plans to go out and watch the game. We went out to watch the Italy game at How Beer Project, which, if you're in the area, is excellent, by the way. They've put a class set up on for the game, so we went there for the Italy game, and despite the fact that we primed our eldest from about 50 minutes in that it was going to be a tough last half hour, he was really upset at the end of the game. So we decided we're not going to put him through that again. When the teams came out on Thursday, we took one look at the Scotland team, cancelled our plans to go out, and decided to just watch it in the house so that we didn't get a really upset child on our hands again, and then cursed that decision by about 15 minutes in on Saturday afternoon. So our youngest, who takes ear defenders with her when she goes to Murrayfield, was wearing the ear defenders in the living room watching the game on Saturday because me and the eldest were making so much noise. So it was very good fun. We enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it's the same with us. I had been whisked away by the current Mrs. Manson to a cheeky wee boat hole up in the Highlands. Highlands, it was the lowlands of the Highlands near Aberfeldy, and it was a beautiful, beautiful little annex of a house, and underfloor heating, which is a revelation. My feet are warm. What's all that about? I enjoyed watching it on the smallest TV I've ever seen in my entire life. But I could hardly see because I didn't have my glasses. Well, my glasses, I was too far away from the TV for my glasses to work. But also when I took my glasses off, it was still fuzzy. But I tell you what, those beers and the bottle of champagne I took with us went down incredibly well. An interesting weekend. We'll move on quickly to the news. Because I'm sure we've got plenty to say about certain things that we're going to talk about further down the line. But first of all, we talked about it a little bit last week, but I wanted to give her plenty due on the podcast. Jade Conkle has announced her retirement from rugby just at the end of last week. Jade, who played at Highland, she played a bit for Highland, did she not, Alan?
I think was she not Craig Denane woman? Because Highland didn't have a women's team.
That's what it was. Because Craig Denane, because Mama Conkle, we've met her a few times because we played against Craig Denane, and she was a Craig Denane person too. So played up at Inverness Craig Denane, moved to Glasgow to Hillhead Jordan Hill, and to a team that dominated the Premiership for many, many years. Made her Scotland debut against England in 2013. She's played in Lille. She ended up at Harlequins in 2018. Was Scotland's first ever professional women player. That was she became that in 2016, which really we have to stand up and say, look, she was a real ceiling breaker, glass ceiling breaker for Scottish rugby. A really nice person as well, to be perfectly honest. And then all of this while becoming a firefighter in London and having a proper job. Jade Conkle, Alan, seeing as you're a Highland boy, an Inverness boy too, she's some player.
Oh, she is. I should correct you and say Jade's from the Black Isle, and I think she might be cross if we refer to as a product of Inverness. The Black Isle's very much its own thing.
Okay.
But she is very much from the local area. Capped in 4 or 5 positions for Scotland, both props, lock, and number 8, I think.
I think you're right.
I mean, that in itself says something about her and her willingness just to play for the jersey and not be precious with what position she's playing and just being out and doing her best for Scotland being the big thing. So yeah, just absolutely incredible, and she was always there for the Highland girls team. Like my daughter's got selfies with her when they went down to international games and things. She very much made herself available and was aware of her position as a role model, and just utterly fantastic.
Yeah, and Jonny, just as we said, first ever professional woman for Scotland. No matter how disappointed we all were that they only made one professional contract available, and those were the days of just us all shaking our heads at the SRU. But to be that first professional player, a real leader, not only on the field but off the field.
Yeah, an absolute talisman, like you say. Massive character, massive leader on the field. Alan's alluded to it already, the same off the field. I think as well, almost like a proto Alona Mayer in that she was just like unapologetically and unforgivably tough as well. Like
Oh yeah.
Jade is hard as nails and was not shy about it. And like I think, especially in the early days of women's rugby, you know, Alona Mayer's made a massive career out of it nowadays to just stand up and be like, yeah, I'm like super tough and I don't care what you think. Was incredible. Like a great way to sort of set a standard and act as a role model for girls coming through, and held on to that her whole career. And obviously you can't be a firefighter as well without being pretty hard. So yeah, she was awesome. Like there's no other way you can kind of talk about her.
Yeah,
she still is awesome, by the way. She's just retiring.
Yeah, she's just retired. But yeah, Jade, I've met Jade a couple of times, and every time I've met her, she's been nothing but the consummate professional and also just a nice person. She's and I think just as you're saying, Johnny, if you watched her, especially in the early days of Scottish rugby, and you watched her playing, especially at number 8. She would scythe through players. She was the physicality of her play was just phenomenal. And obviously she's slowly but surely kind of not been overtaken, but it's become normal in women's rugby to have that physicality. You just got to look at Evie Gallagher and people like that who have really learned a lot from Jade. But also, and I won't say this lightly. She was Scotland captain as well for a period of time. And when we say she was Scotland's first ever professional contract, it was a part-time professional contract, if I remember correctly. If you look at any Scotland male captain, they were Scottish male captain, and that's all they did. They didn't have to be a firefighter. On the other end of it. Now, okay, I believe that Jade wanted to be a firefighter for a long, long time, and it's been she could have been just a professional rugby player at the end of the last few years of it, and she wanted to be a professional firefighter. But you just imagine someone who's playing that level of rugby and is holding down a physical big job, because it's in London as well. It's not like it's just a wee parochial little firefighting place, little fire station, I should say. So yeah, I think a lot to be looked up to. Definitely, she's a person to be looked up to by a lot of the women rugby players that I coach, and I think there's a lot of girls playing rugby in Scotland, especially that have been what's the word? Inspired by Jade Conkle. So Jade, thank you so much for everything that you've done for Scottish rugby, and hopefully we'll get a chance to chat to you at some point. We would love to do that, and have you on the pod. We've been contacted by the we had a note in from the Glasgow Film Festival. That's coming up on Friday the 27th of February. UK premiere of a documentary of the life of rugby legend Jonah Lomu. That's, as I say, that's on Friday the 27th of February in the Glasgow Film Festival. Lomu, which is going to be showing at the Glasgow Film Theatre, charts his journey from his Tongan roots to global stardom, with rare archive footage and interviews with those closest to him. Jonah was the youngest ever All Blacks player at just 19 and shot to worldwide fame in 1995 World Cup. But his life off the pitch was marked by serious kidney illness, and he died just at the age of 40 in 2015. This film is one of 68 UK premieres at this year's film festival in Glasgow, which runs from the 25th of February to the 8th of March. If you want any information or want to look at all the different films that are available, go to glasgowfilm.org and you can check it out. But yeah, great to have a premiere of a rugby documentary stroke movie in Glasgow. That should be something to. If I was over there, I would go. If it wasn't an hour and a half's journey and a whole night away. I'd like to go and see that, but I'm sure we'll catch up with it somewhere.
I will go and play anybody who wants to play me at Chorley Rugby for the PlayStation. I'll tell you that right now. That was a formative experience in my early adulthood. The release of Chorley Rugby. That was the first and only, and I don't care what anyone says, really good rugby computer game.
It was when you perfected the kick-off so you could kick it and it would bounce and go out in the corner, and then you could challenge for the line out. That was, yeah.
Well, see, I never played John the Lumley Rugby. I was a Colin McRae rally guy, so that was the one that took up all my time. But anyway, that's our news bit kind of over at the moment, because we're going to come back to it in the Patreon part. But regarding Patreon, we'll say hello and welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast, brought to you by Scottish Rugby Blog. Our podcast is part of the Sports Social Network, and please don't forget to give us a follow or a like on your favourite podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to give us a follow on social media. You can find all the links to our site, on our site, I should say, at www.scottishrugbyblog.co.uk, where you must go and have a wee read, because the lesser spotted Rory Baldwin has put hand to keyboard regarding the Calcutta Cup, and it's a really nice piece.
I think he said he dictated it. He hasn't tried.
Did he dictate it? He didn't type it out. Did he dictate it? Okay.
Mouth to microphone. Mouth to pre-recorded microphone. He's not even as brave as us. He put it to pre-recorded microphone.
Is that why he was asking for my dictaphone, and I totally and utterly got mixed up by it? I don't know what he didn't like. He didn't like the picture I sent him. I don't know why.
Just use his finger like everyone else.
If you're listening on Apple and like what we do, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like more content and want to support what we do, you can subscribe to our Patreon from just £3 a month. And that gives you access to a super secret Facebook group. And the second part of tonight's podcast, as well as Patreon exclusives, but the second half of the podcast tonight obviously has the legendary Hands in the Ruck section, but we also we get a little bit looser with the conversation as well. And also, we're going to discuss the team news for Scotland v Wales. But right at this moment in time, Scotland 31, England 20. England were pretty much blown off the park for most of the game. Tries from Jamie Ritchie, 2 from Hugh Jones, and 1 from Ben White. Hugh Jones, the highest try scorer in Calcutta Cup history. Isn't that just amazing? And
I will accept apologies for anyone who wants to tell me that I've been right all along about Hugh Jones at any time.
Hang on, I'm not going to say anything about Hugh Jones. What I'm going to say is he has been developed underneath Gregor Townsend. Does that not say a lot about Gregor Townsend?
Do you know what? Duhan van der Merwe is quite high on the list of Calcutta Cup try scorers as well. And I don't think it's ever been in doubt that Gregor Townsend is capable of putting together a team that beats England. It's beating everybody else that's the problem.
Yeah, I suppose. But obviously...
Have you seen the meme? I'm sure it was Scottish Rugby memes, Graham Love, because all the good memes are him, with the 2 SpongeBobs. And it's Scotland in the Calcutta Cup and Scotland against everybody else.
I haven't seen it, no. But
I may have, yeah.
But what I was going to ask you, Alan, looking at, we'll go into the game a little bit, we'll talk about the game, but the result, and England seem to really have a bit of hoodoo against Scottish Rugby in the Calcutta Cup lately. Are they just weak-minded?
I actually think it's the reliance on Scottish qualified players that's come back to bite them.
I think you're right.
Was it 6? 6 in the end?
I don't know what, because someone said something about Alex Coles potentially, but I had a look and I didn't think so, but I don't know.
Roebuck, Dingwall, Finn Smith, Henry Pollock. There's at least 2 more, I think.
Bevan Rod.
Bevan Rod. I can't think of the last one is.
Arundel. Arundel's
Ah, yeah.
We're just not
Imagine
claiming him after that weekend, although his deep cover mission was, I mean, chef kiss.
So a phenomenal, phenomenal performance, a great show of rugby from Scotland. Jonny, let's first of all, I'll talk to Alan in a minute about the proper rugby when we start talking about the forwards, but the backs put on, led by Finn Russell, what a phenomenal, game of rugby, opportunities taken. We may talk about Arundel in a minute, but someone's making these mistakes and getting yellow cards because they're put under huge amounts of pressure. Highlights for you from the Scottish backline?
Yeah. I'm going to sound like a homer in so many different ways here. I'm going to sound like a Glasgow homer. I'm going to sound like a winger homer. I'm going to sound like someone who's been banging his drum for quite a long time. Kyle Steyn went out on Saturday afternoon and showed that he did not become statistically the best player in Europe by accident, because England couldn't kick and they couldn't compete Scotland's kicks without Kyle Steyn in their faces for every single one. He gave them no opportunity. They couldn't get it clear because he was under every single clearance kick. They couldn't gather it safely because he was under every single kick that Ben White or Finn Russell put over. He was incredible. Like, people have, I guess, quite rightly, if Six Nations time, if you're a casual watcher, people have quite rightly been saying, where are Darcy Graham and Duhan van der Merwe in the Six Nations? And I understand if you're a Six Nations watcher and you see a Scotland team that hasn't got Darcy or Duhan in it, it does raise a few eyebrows. Those of us in particular who have watched a lot of Glasgow this year would have had Kyle Steyn as one of the first names on the team sheet, and he absolutely showed why on Saturday. Like, that was one of the best performances I've seen a winger put in for Scotland in years. And I think because of the way that he did it, it went a little bit unnoticed. He didn't beat six defenders and score like Duhan would do, and he didn't step three of them in a food box like Darcy would do. But he made life miserable for that English back three for the whole afternoon on Saturday, and that was the basis. He took their game away from them. Yeah,
and I think Alan, that's got a lot to do with Scotland's performance. Is that they played England, and I mean, when I say played, I mean they played to their strengths against England's weaknesses. England look, in my opinion, and I'm sure you can correct me if I'm wrong or give me your opinion on it, but England look like a fuel tanker in the sea that needs 6 miles to stop, or they seem to not be able to change on the hoof. They seem to be very, very much almost to the point where they're coached almost like a Joe Smith team. That's you at the kickoff you do this, then you do this, then you do that, then you do the other, and if it doesn't work, they're all standing around scratching their head.
Yeah, when you said take 6 miles to stop and 3 to turn, I was wondering if you meant England or just their fullback Freddie Stewart. But I think, yeah, I think all rugby teams to an extent are now really coached to the point where it's difficult to think on your feet. You could argue Scotland had that issue in Italy as well. And I think, but England's game is built on the kick chase, getting good ball back, working from there. And Scotland got in their face, particularly through Kyle Steyn, but through others, and really disrupted that kick chase, stopped them being able to get the ball back, denied them that platform, and created broken field running for themselves.
Yeah, and when it comes to broken field running, there's no one better than Finn Russell, Jonny.
No, and I think he's really benefited this year from everybody else around him kind of being on the same page. And when we were sitting watching at the house on Saturday, we were talking about, like, Finsanity is back to a certain extent, but now, rather than it just being like, oh, he's just done something mad and no one can really work out why, it's like he's done something mad and everybody around him has kind of worked out what's happening. That slap pass to Hugh Jones for the first try or second try, that was
Slap pass was to Jamie Ritchie, wasn't it?
mental.
No, David Rich pass.
Oh no, that was Sione to
Yeah.
Jamie Ritchie.
Yeah.
My apologies.
It was mental. But back in the day, Finn would have done something mental like that, and it would have caught somebody on the Scotland team by surprise as much as it caught everybody else by surprise. I think Hugh and Sione in particular, but a lot of the other players around them seem to be on the same page with that now, so that when we do get broken play and we're going at 100 miles an hour and all of a sudden Finn tries something, it's not like the Scotland players around him are thinking, Jesus, what's he done that for? Sione and Hugh in particular, but a lot of other players as well, can kind of at least half see it coming. And that makes a massive difference, I think. Like, you cannot play like that on your own, because all that happens is, like, he slaps that through and there's nobody there. You've got to have at least a couple of people that sort of at least half know what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, Ben White has been quoted today. Well, in fact, I've seen the clip of him saying that that try that Ellis Genge fumbled, he was all set to pass the ball, and Finn was shouting at him about something else, and he passed the ball to Finn because he thought Finn wanted the ball, and Finn was absolutely and utterly incredulous about him passing the ball, but then thought, oh, Christ, right, okay, I'll get it sorted out, and the try came from there. And it seems to be that everyone seems to be on this ability to now, they've been playing long enough with Finn now that they know what's going to happen if they've got open play.
I do want to take him up on something though, because I saw the other clip on the Scottish Rugby Instagram today talking about a slap pass, and at one point he says, "Yeah, you don't really practice something like that," and I want to say, Finn, thanks to him, I've spent 2.5 hours coaching under 10s since Saturday afternoon, and all they have done is practice that. So thank you very much. You might not practice it, but I've got to deal with 29-year-olds now trying to do it. So now everybody's practicing it. Maybe you don't, but everybody else is now.
The thing that really got me about, Ben White saying that he'd thrown the ball to Finn, and Finn it wasn't expecting it and wasn't really appreciating the pass, is that's the passage of play the commentator described Finn as relaxed as a sloth in a day spa. So whatever Finn's thinking, he's looking relaxed and his brain's working, which is just great. It's fantastic. And of course the opportunity comes out of it. And even if Genge hadn't spilled it, he was isolated. There were Scotland players bearing down on him. It was a penalty at the very least, and potentially another yellow card.
Yeah, well, there's that. And Alan, hallelujah, the line out works.
Yeah, I think it's a bit harsh on Ewan Ashman, though. I mean, it looks like it was all Ewan Ashman's fault, but it didn't work when Turner came on either. And actually, quite a lot of the time, the ball was thrown in and the jumpers didn't even go up. So I think it was a systemic failing. But, how much better it is when you've got some degree of platform. We didn't worry about the scrumbing and skates so much because, we at least had some way of getting set piece ball.
Yeah, unfortunately, the kind of quite bad flip side news on that is that the other difference in the line out operation, other than Ashman being out and Turner being in, is Jamie Ritchie was incredible at the line out.
Yeah, and that was a point I was going to come to. We just first things first, and take this from someone who coaches forwards as well as has been involved in lineouts for many, many years, and you guys know exactly what I'm going to say. It's not just a hooker's fault. The problem is the hooker's got the ball in his hand at the side there, and he's on his own, and everyone else is standing in a line waiting for the ball to come in, and it's very, very easy to blame a hooker. Now, don't get me wrong, Ewan Ashman does not cover himself in glory at times for both Edinburgh and for Scotland when it comes to balls cover, to lineouts. But the pylon I felt was difficult to listen to when with the Italy game because there's many moving parts in the lineout. But Jamie, going back
to the photo from the Italy game, the one that sort of looks like an accidental Renaissance painting, the elevation that the Italy jumper gets compared to the Scotland jumper. Now, Ashman maybe has overthrown it slightly, but Italy's lifters and jumper are at full extension, and Scotland look like they're barely even trying. And like that's not Ashman's fault.
And that says a lot about the performance in Italy. To be perfectly honest, I think the words "not looking like they're trying" had a lot to say about. Could say quite a lot about that game, but yeah, Johnny, Jamie Ritchie, just could have had a man of the match or player of the match performance, even if from half time and coming off at half time. He was everywhere. He was in the opposition's ears. He was roaming around and getting the odd penalty for blocking. Because I saw I saw him. That penalty gave away for what they call when Jamie
blocking the access.
Blocking the access. Now that looked the most casual. You had to really be trying to give him a penalty for that because he didn't look like he was doing it, although he was. But Jamie Ritchie was a real, just back to Jamie Ritchie. I think he was. I'm glad. I don't mean this the wrong way to him, but I'm glad he's not captain because he can just concentrate on being a total wind-up merchant.
Yeah. As much as it's still a fairly solid-looking back row on Saturday afternoon, our BQ, trademark Alan McDonald, has gone down significantly for the rest of the tournament. Like, we could not have lost two more abrasive players than Jamie Ritchie and Jack Dempsey in the back row. And it's probably not going to make a massive difference on Saturday, but with Ireland and France still to come, you want the nastiest back rows you can get, and we have lost two that we cannot replace in terms of just like hard-nosed, abrasive, nasty players in Jamie and Dempo. Like that's going to be a big loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think we've lost the line out jumping, fortunately, because of course the person that's replaced Jamie, will come to it, was one of our primary second row jumpers on Saturday, and actually has a fair amount of BQ himself. But yeah, it's a net loss from the team.
It really is, and another net loss from the team. Jamie Dobie with a shoulder injury, and what I liked about Jamie Dobie on the weekend before he was injured was the fact that, and this maybe he reminds me not so much of Darcy, but he reminds me of Darcy's sort of way of going about his business. He just gets on with it, and he's there. He's around when there's a tackle to be made. It's being made by Jamie Dobie. He's got that sort of, how can I put it? He's got a bit of, who he reminds me of, apart from he doesn't have the long flowing hair, and that's is it Werner Koch?
Yes.
He's got that sort of aggression. He's a winger, but he's still got that aggression, and he wants to do everything he possibly can. I thought his performances lately have been very, very good. I think he was a bit quiet in the Italy game, but I think everyone else was. But Johnny, he's going to be missed, but we'll talk about who's replacing him in the Patreon part. But Jamie Dobie is going to be missed.
Yes, yeah, he's had a great season, and the versatility that he brings in, like we spoke about, the Storm Blue in the face, and the difference that he can make to the attack is something that you cannot really. And we are replacing him, and we will speak about it with one or two of probably the most talented wingers that Scotland have ever had. And I don't think you would talk about Jamie Dobie in the conversation of Scotland's most talented ever wingers. But like you say, he's busy, he's aggressive, and also he's multi-talented. If you want to get Finn going forward in a really quick attack, having Jamie Dobie on the field makes all the difference, because you have essentially got, well, not essentially, you've actually got two scrum halves on the field. Jamie Dobie's an excellent scrum half. Scrum half is his position of choice. It's where he has usually played. And having somebody who can do that makes your attack just that much quicker. And that's not something we can replace. We can replace a lot of what he does. And we can arguably replace it with more talent at certain aspects of playing on the wing. but neither Darcy or Duhan has that ability to double at scrum half that Jamie does.
Yeah, and Alan, a quietly confident game from Tom Jordan. Obviously there were a few other players on the field who were getting the plaudits and being the superstars, but Tom Jordan at 15 seemed to have a better game this game.
I think in some ways, and again, it feels like a backhanded compliment, but it's absolutely not intended as such. One of the best things you can say about Jordan's performance at 15 is that you didn't notice it. You tend to notice what goes wrong, particularly if someone's playing in the third choice position, as he is. But he absolutely just did everything that was expected of him. I thought it was excellent.
The problem I have is I still, and I'm going to put on my Edinburgh tinted glasses here. I still don't understand why Tom Jordan was on the field instead of Blair Kinghorn. Because for me, I want an all-out 15 on the field at every game. So So something's going on, and I don't know what it is. But something's going on. To see Blair Kinghorn going home to play for Toulouse, I really am against that, and I'm going to stand on that hill, whether I'm going to die on it or not. But it's I really don't understand why we're bringing someone in who plays better at different positions. And I'm not saying he didn't have a good game on the weekend, but I just don't understand why we're putting someone like him into 15 when we've got Blair King on there, who is world class at 15 nowadays. But just
some good news later on, Craig.
There is that. But last minute to go, and then we're going to move on to Patreon. But we'll finish off with a slight negative. Our scrummage seems to have lost a little bit of an edge. Xander Fagerson doesn't seem to have come back to his old grizzled self at the moment. However, Alan, it seemed that Elliot Miller-Mills has risen to the challenge.
Yeah, I owe Elliot Miller-Mills an apology, because when we were speaking last week, I talked about the bench as all being full of players who could change the energy of the game, and said that Elliot Miller-Mills couldn't, but he was just there because he was the best understudy to Xander, and I was very pleased to eat my words on that. I think I thought he was great when he came on. Craig, what do you think the problem with Xander is? Why was Genge getting? What was he doing? Have you had a chance to have a think about it?
I had a look at it, and I think there's two things. Xander's come up against one of the best loose head scrummagers in the world. At the moment, Ellis Genge is world class. But he was painting an incredibly good picture. Now, I don't know if... I think Xander works... You see, because, for example, if you watch Xander a couple of times, he was extending his legs out quite far. It was almost like he was going back. Remember when we went through a stage where I think Xander and also...
Simon Bergen,
etc., were getting pinged regularly for Glasgow and for Scotland because they were overextending themselves in the scrum, and they were and I was saying, why are they doing this? Are they coaching this at Glasgow? And I was finding it really difficult to understand what was going on. It's almost like he's clicked back into a muscle memory but for me, I think that's because he had. I'm not entirely sure he had the sort of strength behind him in second row that he's used to. I don't know. I just saw that his legs are overextending, so he's overextending. So the minute Ellis Genge puts any sort of twist, any sort of movement through his shoulders into him, if he's overextended, he's going on the ground. And if the referee sees that, then he's overextended, penalty. Right, okay, scrum goes down again. Well, it's obviously him again, so he's going to get a penalty again. And I think that's where the difficulty came in. I might be completely wrong, and there might be, younger, more knowledgeable scrummagers out there who have watched that and thinking, because I remember being talking with someone who I respected a huge amount when it comes to scrummaging, saying that it was the loose head that was causing the problem, even though the loose head wasn't going to ground first on your own team, but because he was weaker, that the tight head prop was struggling and the pressure was bringing them down. So there's so many different ways you can look at it. But for me, the most obvious was the overextending of the legs and just going up against someone who's world class. And unfortunately, he had a bad day.
So what? I'm relatively confident to say though that Xander will not have a game that bad again for a long time.
No.
Like, one thing about Xander is, if he has a really bad game, he'll correct it. Like, he's an incredibly smart prop. He knows a lot about propping, almost as much as Craig. And when he has a bad day like that, he won't have another one again for a long time. And you're right, like Genge is one of the best loose heads in the world. And on top of that, Xander's always been kind of picked out for his ability to use a lot of old school dirty tricks as a prop. And if there's anybody better than Xander at that, it's Ellis Genge. Like, not only is he technically excellent, he's really good at proper dirty dark art prop stuff. And him and Xander have played together or alongside each other for ages. They were picked twice together for the Lions. Now, Xander obviously didn't go last year, but Xander and Ellis Genge went together, trained together for the Lions in 2021, were selected again in 2025. They know each other really well, and they are two of the best in the world. And at prop more than anything else, when you know your opposition that well, you know what Xander's going to try and do, what he's going to try and get away with. He knows what Ellis Genge is going to try and do and what Ellis Genge is going to try and get away with. And Genge just got away with it a bit better on Saturday than Xander did. I don't think that we'll see a performance like that from Xander again for quite a while.
Yeah, if you watch Ellis Genge play for Bristol and you watch a lot of the Premiership games, he is continually at it when it comes to scrummaging. He is not just using power to win a scrum or win his part of the scrum. What he is using everything from chatting at people all the way through to different movements, etc. in the scrummage itself. And I have to say, you don't see that so much. Pardon me. You don't get to see that so much from a tight head because tight heads tend to be a bit more bound in and a bit more. So you don't really see a lot of it. Although you do see a bit of chat back because if you're if you look up on YouTube, I think it's Xander, it's Ellis Genge and the Gloucester young prop he's about 20, 21, and there was a game that they played Bristol v Gloucester and it was just gold because there was just sections every time they came to scrummage. This young prop was getting one over on Ellis Genge, and Ellis Genge was getting more and more frustrated. And eventually, I think the young prop waved him bye as he went off and was replaced by someone else. So you've got to, if you're a proper nose like I am when it comes to scrummaging, it's a really interesting battle. But unfortunately, the only thing that England won on the weekend was the loose head and tight head game in the scrum, and that was about it. So anyway, enough of that.
Goes to show though just how depowered the scrum has become, because Scotland were second best in the scrum, but undisputably on top throughout the game, which I think is quite interesting.
I think yes, but I think when I understand the depower, I understand the wording, but for me, it's more the fact that scrummaging has got to a point where very rarely do you get interesting contests in scrummaging at the moment because everyone is at a certain level, and I think that's got a lot to do with it. I think. It's getting used more and more because they're speeding it up a lot more. It's getting used more and more as just a restart rather than, because not to get too deep into it because we're now 6 minutes over when I was going to finish up, but to give you an idea for me, because England were absolutely just, as far as I was concerned, they got a penalty against Xander. Xander then got put on a warning. The first thing I would have done if I was captain was say, scrum again.
Yeah.
And get him sent off.
They should have scrummed again because they would still have had that penalty and we'd been a player down. I'm very grateful they didn't, because that would have made the game a lot more tricky.
Yeah. But that's the thing, you know, and because of my background and your background as well, Alan, you know, we always look to, like, let's punish that other, you know, put the foot in the throat, punish them for their mistakes. Whereas England didn't do that. They'd obviously decided, right, we're now here, we're going to go and do this, or we're going to take the points because we decided that's what's going to happen. Whereas they didn't think on their feet, because my first thought was, right, okay, scrum again, please, sir, and we'll take on now, you know. But anyway, we will move on. Thank you so much to you all for joining us on the live and on the live pod, and also as part of the free-to-air part of the Scottish Rugby podcast. We are going to move over to our Patreon side. If you do want to join us on our Patreon side, go to www.scottishRugbyblog.co.uk. I've forgotten the .co.uk, and you'll find out information of how to become a patron of our pod, support what we do, and also hear the next part of the podcast, where we get a little bit looser when we talk about things, and we are going to talk about Gregor Townsend's reaction to the win on the weekend and who he's putting in place for the injured players. So thanks again to both the fine gentlemen that have joined me tonight, Alan McDonald and Jonny McGinty, and thanks to you all for joining us tonight, and have a great weekend and a Scotland win.
Bye all.